And I read it, and I don't throw books often, but I do kind of slam them down. And this one was a slammer. I was so angry that I ranted about it to essentially anyone that was in my vicinity. And that book is 8.
Welcome to Keep It Fictional, a weekly podcast for book lovers by book lovers. Build your to-be-read list with Sadie, Liz, Virginia, Fiona, and Corrine from the Port Moody Public Library. Warning, this podcast contains strong opinions and may cause an increase in your library holds list.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another edition of Keep It Fictional. We are here from the Port Moody Public Library. I'm Fiona, and today we are going to be talking about our picks for the forthcoming Readathon. So, at Port Moody Public Library, we celebrate the wonderful, wonderful month of Booktoberfest. This year, to start that off, we are going to be doing a 72-hour readathon in which we pledge to read at least 12 hours out of those 3 days. Virginia has made us this amazing tracker. You can get it online by going to the event page, or you can come in and get a copy at the info desk. So this is a way to track your reads. Each hour that you read, you color it in until your delicious cup is completely filled with your wonderful reading hours. So I am joined today by Virginia.
Hello.
Sadie.
Hello!
Corrine.
Hey!
And Liz.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about our planned reading for the readathon. So I know it's important to us that there's some flexibility in that. You know, if something really ends up not being a winner, we don't want to endorse it, but these are things that we are excited to read. So I think we're all going to pick 3 or 4 and talk about them. Virginia, you have one that you want to talk about?
Sure do. So I think the first book I am going to try to read this readathon, which is super exciting, is called The City and the City by China Miéville. Many, many moons ago, I read his kids/teen book called London, and it was such a refreshing read from what was trending at that point in teen fiction and in kids fiction, and it was so creative, so original, and I love all the things that are in there, and it was just so different that it was mesmerizing, and from then on I have tried to read his adult books, but I fell in almost all of them because there was never something like his books are very weird, his books are very abstract, and just there was just nothing for me to hang on to that can pull me through the whole story. So I kind of gave up on most of them, sadly, but I think this is going to be the one because this is written in 2009, so a little bit older, but I think also before he got too weird, I guess. So hopefully this will pan out. And just like many of his books, has really great premises. So this one is about 2 cities that, from what I understand, they both coexist in the same physical space. So nothing magical in this one. It's just they both are in the same physical space. Say if you belong to one city and your house is in that city, there might be a house right next to you, but that's not in the same city. So that's in another city. And when that's the case, you are supposed to ignore it. You're supposed to just like not even acknowledge that exists because you're not supposed to be able to see it. It's in another city. So there's some weird guidelines and weird rules that for the people who live in these 2 cities that they abide by, or else bad things going to happen. Give you so much a glance at that other house and see it basically. And in this weird setup is the book begins with a murder. The 2 detectives, one from each city, has to work together to figure out what happened to the woman. And in doing so, they're going to uncover a lot of secret plans from people who want to put the 2 cities together and also people who would like to destroy the other one and be the only city in there. So we'll see. I am hoping that this is going to turn out to be the China Mivelle book that I can actually finish. And Los Angeles Times called this book if Philip K. Dick and Raymond Chandler has a love child and is raised by Franz Kafka. So that sounds like my kind of thing. So I'm really excited. It's more a police procedural and more mystery, but with a little, I'm sure there's a little bit of fantastical elements in it. It's the winner of the Arthur C. Clarke Award and also a finalist for the Nebula Award. So again, promising. So we'll see how that goes, and I will let everybody know.
Thank you for that bizarre image of co-parenting that I now have in my head. All right, Sadie, what do you have for us?
So the first book that I am planning on reading is called A Wish in the Dark, and it is by Christina Soontornvat. And the thing that first drew me to this book is it is described as a retelling or inspired by Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, which is one of my favorite musicals, and I am very interested in the story of Les Miserables. I have not finished the book of Les Miserables, but maybe this will be a good place to get me back into reading that book again. So this story revolves around Pong, and Pong was born inside a prison. He was born in the Nam Wan prison. And whenever he looks out his window, he sees these lights, and the lights in the city represent freedom for him. They're magical to him because they're part of this world that he has never been a part of. And then Pong escapes from prison. And once he's out of prison, he starts to realize that the magic of the lights and the magic of this city that he did not get a chance to experience is not actually as magical as he thought it was. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of kind of discrepancy between what the wealthy people get and what the poor people get. And Pong starts to realize and kind of learn what exactly the city is made of, and what he is going to now experience by living on the outside. He is also tattooed with a prison tattoo, which makes it very difficult for him to ever really escape from the prison. The other side of this story is Knock, and Knock is the prison warden's daughter, and she is perfect. She represents this strong kind of prison, this strong system that she has always believed in. And when Pong escapes from prison, she decides that she is going to track him down and bring him back. So she goes out into the city as well and starts to hunt him and track him down through the alleys and through the city and the canals of the city of Chitana, where this prison is. And she also starts to realize that the world that she understood and the world that she knew, coming from the side inspired by the prison and her father, who is the prison warden, and everything that she has been taught up to this point, might not actually be the truth of what the world actually is. So I'm very curious to see what happens. As I said, I'm very curious to see how they use kind of the story of Les Mis. I can see it already just in the description, but I'm very interested to see what happens and kind of see a different take on it. It is set in a fantasy world, but it is a Thai-inspired fantasy world, which I am also very curious to see kind of the world that this author creates. So A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat.
It's really good, Sadie.
Okay, I'm excited.
I know nothing about Les Miserables, so it doesn't really mean anything to me. So I'm sure you would get way more out of it, but it's good.
Nice. I'm very excited.
Kareen, do you want to do the next one?
Sure. So my book that I am going to be reading this weekend is kind of inspired by today, which is September 30th, which is Orange Shirt Day, which honors the lives of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people that went to residential school and came back, and those who didn't. So the book that I am going to be reading this weekend is Highway of Tears, a true story of racism, indifference, and the pursuit of justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So this is a BC story. It takes place kind of in northern BC along Highway 16. And it talks about how for decades, women and girls went missing along this stretch of road. And for decades, essentially, nothing happened. The author, who's Jessica McDermott, is not an Indigenous person. She is a journalist. And in this book, she interviews and talks to family and relations of women and children that have gone missing in this particular area, and then also highlights their fight for justice, as well as kind of examining the systemic racism entrenched in this area, in BC, and then also in a larger Canadian context. So as of the writing, there are estimated 4,000 missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So this story tells a very local impact on it, and I'm really looking to learn more of this. And I think it'll be a really, really good read for everyone who's kind of interested in learning more about this particular issue. So that is Highway of Tears by Jessica McDermott.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Corinne. And thank you for the reminder about Orange Shirt Day. I appreciate that. Liz, what have you got for us?
So for one of my picks for the readathon, I thought I'd throw it back to 1938 with a good old classic by Daphne du Maurier called Rebecca. And this is one of the myriad of covers that have been produced for this book. You can see this one was only 35 cents when it came out. What a deal. But you can get a copy through your library for free. So beat that 35 cents. Anyhow, the reason why I'm kind of wanting to go back to read Rebecca is that there is a Netflix film coming out in October. Yes, I admit it. Hearing that a film is coming out is making me want to read the book, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't usually gravitate toward classics, but this one seems to suit my reading taste, so I'm very hopeful for it. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, Rebecca is classified as a Gothic novel or Gothic horror or even romantic horror. So that all, so far, so good. Sounds good to me. Now, the premise of the story is a young woman working as a lady's maid happens to meet a wealthy widower. And they are charmed by each other. They end up in a whirlwind romance, and very quickly he proposes marriage to her. Now, how amazing. A wonderful man in a higher station in life professes his love for her. What could go wrong? Well, she decides to marry him, and he takes her back to his sprawling country estate in the English countryside, and that's where things start to go wrong. This house has a lot of memories in it, and the wealthy widower, despite having found a beautiful young bride who he purportedly was enamored with, he's got some issues. He's haunted by the memory of his first wife. And the housekeeper of this manor estate, she seems to not be able to let go of this wife either. And she doesn't miss any opportunity to remind the young bride whose house it originally was. So I'm looking forward to a good spooky read, a little bit of romance, but a little bit of spookiness, a little bit of haunting perhaps, as we are heading into October or Booktoberfest.
Great. I also am planning to read that before I watch the Netflix.
The trailer looks super good.
Yeah.
It does. All-star cast, Armie Hammer,
All-star.
Kristen Scott Thomas, and Lily James.
That's it. So my book is also inspired by a forthcoming adaptation. I have not yet read Eden Robinson's Son of a Trickster, and it is getting a mini-series from CBC. So I really want to finish this weekend before that comes out. I actually don't know a whole lot about this book other than that everyone loves it so much and I need to read it. All I know is it is about a kind of stoner kid. He suddenly starts to have the ability to talk to ravens, even when he is not stoned. And I think it's set in the real world, but there is a lot of mythology and magic. It is, of course, BC author. And I actually just watched an adaptation of her other book, Monkey Beach. So it is set in Kitimat, and it was adapted to film, and it's playing at VIFF, the Vancouver International Film Festival. So shout out for that. That is happening right now. So that is all I've experienced of Eden Robinson so far, but she seems to have a really neat way of approaching stories in this sort of like cyclical storytelling. So I'm really, really excited for this one. And I think Virginia has got another pick for us.
Okay, so this one is not hasn't been on my to be read list for that long, but I did get a hold from it yesterday from the library, so I figure, you know what, let's do this. It is Hispanic Heritage Month until October 15, I believe. So I figure, you know, I'll kind of try to get into some of the books by Latino authors, and so this one I've got is called Lobizona. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, and it is by Romina Garber. This one is an Argentinian folklore-inspired fantasy, and it is a book 1 of the series called Wolves of No World. I am cautiously optimistic because this is a teen paranormal romance thing, and me and romance paranormal thing don't really go together. But I also know that a lot of newer fantasy has really like taken some of the tropes, some of the sort of usual setting, and take a familiar story and really use it to look at like social issues and gender roles. And I think this is sort of what I was told this book will be, and so I'm excited about that. So the story is about Manu, who is an undocumented immigrant in the States, living with her mother and her grandmother. And being an illegal immigrant, she's not allowed to go out, you know, and she's just basically hiding all the time. She can't go to school, and she, her grandmother basically homeschool her. And the family decides to escape to the United States and hide there because her father was killed by the mafia in Argentina. However, one day her mother was taken away by ICE and her grandmother was severely injured. She was sort of left alone, and things got desperate, and somehow she found out about this magical school. For boys, they train them to be Lobizona, which is the word for werewolves. And for girls, they train them to be witches, to be brujas. And she somehow find out that her family and all the secrets about her family is tied to this school, and that she'll be able to find out who she really is by infiltrating the school. And I believe it said also this book that will sort of turn all the like magical school trope, turn it upside down. It talks about gender roles and all of that. So I think this will be an interesting kind of fantasy. I always find that when you have different fantasy inspired by different folklore, it always kind of get me into like rabbit holes into learning about more about the mythology, learning about all about the story. So I'm really looking forward to that. So again, this is Lobizona by Romina Garber.
That sounds very, very interesting.
Good cover.
So it sounds like my kind of book.
It does. I think it will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
You two are having a lot of crossover today. I feel like that doesn't always happen.
Are. It's true.
We do both like
True.
fantasy. So
We do.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have another fantasy for us, Sadie?
Well, my second book is not actually a fantasy. So the second book that I am planning to read is Stamped. And this is by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. This is Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. So this book says very clearly this is not a history book. This is about the here and now. This is taken from Ibram X. Kendi's Stamped from the Beginning, which goes through the history of racist ideas, mainly in the United States. But I think that that history and what is happening in the world today is very useful to know and can be seen in many places that not just the United States. So this goes through that history kind of from the very beginning of racist ideas in America. And it hopefully will inspire hope for an anti-racist future.
I'm looking forward to reading this book. I'm not sure what to expect from it. It's been on my to be read list for a very long time, and I finally got the hold from the library. So I'm expecting to be challenged. I'm expecting to learn something. I'm expecting to know more about the history and about the situation in the world in regards to racism, and hopefully be able to take more steps in my own life from this book to become anti-racist. So this is stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. Again, this is a junior or YA interpretation of Ibram X. Kendi's adult book, stamped from the beginning. So I hope that I enjoy this, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot.
It's great.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to it.
Really good. Yeah.
What is your next pick, Green?
Well, my next book is also one, like Sadie, that I've been waiting to read for a very, very long time. And that is because it came out in the UK and then has kind of like slowly made its way over to the North American market. I'm very excited. It's someone that I follow on Instagram and I think is like just amazingly talented and is really going to shake up YA in a big way. And it's also in a format that I really enjoy. So I'm a huge novel in verse fan. I am the first to say that I don't particularly love poetry. It's not my thing, but I love novels in verse. I think there's something so powerful about the format that really changes the way that you digest the story and kind of makes you think and gives you space to pause, where a novel might not necessarily do that. So this book is kind of like a beautiful Venn diagram of everything that I want. It's a book in prose. It comes from the UK. It's LGBTQ2. And it is, of course, the Stonewall Book Award winner, The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. So it is about Michael, who is our protagonist. He is a mixed race kid. He is both Greek Cypriot and Black. From a Jamaican descent, and he is also gay. However, with all of these kind of different identities, he never really feels enough of something. He never feels Black enough, or Greek enough, or gay enough. And as he kind of gets older and starts discovering more about himself, he kind of gets involved with the drag society, where he finally kind of feels himself, and he develops the persona of the Black Flamingo. I expect this book to be honest and funny, and like, let's be honest, I'm going to cry. I always cry at everything. I think it's going to be joyful. I think it's going to be just everything. I am so excited to have this book, and I've been kind of saving it for a special time. And the readathon is that time. The readathon is the time to go through that to be read pile and just kind of pick out all those ones that you've been waiting for. And I think now's the time. Now's the time for Dean.
I'm so excited for that one. I can't wait to hear what you think.
Well, when I bring it back to the library, I'm sure your hold is next.
Yep. Okay, Liz, what have you got next?
Well, I'm going to change gears again. And this is a book that Virginia has recently read. And of course, we don't just talk about books during book chat. We talk about books pretty much every waking minute when we're not doing other work. So I thought I'd pick this one up and give it a try. This one is called Mother for Dinner, and it's a novel by Shalom Auslander. Now, that sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Mother for dinner. Having a nice, lovely family dinner. Well, let's rewind a little bit. So, this is a story about cultural identity. It's a story about assimilation, the values that we carry over in our heritage, and what values we decide to continue on with in our present day lives. Now, this is a story that revolves around a cannibal American family. Yes, you heard that right, cannibal American family. Now, you don't really hear much about them anymore because they don't really practice that side of their heritage much anymore. It's kind of, as they've been assimilated into American culture, those ways of cannibalism have been left behind. However, when the 12 children of a family headed by a matriarch who is passing away, is told on her deathbed, her wish, quote unquote, eat me. Well, they're kind of forced to confront that heritage. Now, of course, they want to do right by their mother. They want to honor her last wish, her dying wish. However, there's some complications. One of the kids in this 12 children family, he's gone kosher. Another one of the kids has gone vegan. And another one of the kids, he's just kind of done with that. He's like, yeah, you know what? That's not really my kind of thing. I don't really identify with that cultural heritage of cannibalism. So, from what I gather, this story is about how these 12 children confront their mother's dying wish and try and find a balance between the two as they re-examine what their cultural heritage is and what that means. A book that's an example of an interesting new trend, mini trend, pseudo trend in publishing the cannibalism books of late. I'm just going to stop right there.
I just love to think of somebody coming in partway through this talk. How much
A book for everyone.
Yeah.
How much humor are you expecting in this book?
It's very very, very dark humor. Very, very dark humor. It's super funny, but it's also very surprising because of what the book ends up being about. A book that is about cannibalism, but also very, very much like Liz described about, an immigrant experience, which I was not expecting, and just what it does when you, like Liz said, when what you're supposed to do and figure out in your culture what are the things that you want to keep and what are the things that you should let go, and how that works when you're living in a place when all the kids grow up in the States, and they're not, even though they hear about all the culture stuff from their mother, like, you recognize that there's things that may or may not, you don't want to continue, and then maybe there are things that you didn't know that you end up continuing that you didn't realize that you have. It's quite amazing. If you can get past the premise of the cannibalism thing, it is quite amazing. So yeah, I would say probably one of my favorite book for the year. It is that good.
I have another dark book, so this might be a good segue. I'm planning to read Universal Harvester by John Darnielle. Okay, and I see Virginia's getting excited, and I have to ask, I just kept thinking, does Virginia read John Darnielle? Does she love John Darnielle? So he is of the Mountain Goats, if anyone is wondering about that. So an indie American singer, songwriter. Oh, I feel like I'm butchering this, but very excellent musician and deeply thinking person. So I love his writing, despite the fact that he often writes about things that I don't like. So I first read his writing in a novella, and it was fantastic. And I just thought I need to read more from this person. So I read Wolf and White Van, which came before this one, and loved it, but was deeply disturbed by it. So I keep taking this book out and then not reading it because I'm really afraid. And it's the premise seems innocent enough. It's the 90s, and it is about Jeremy, and he works in a movie store, sort of like a Blockbuster style movie store, and it is about competing movie stores. But what happens is customer comes in and tries to return something because she says there's something wrong with this video. It's working, but there's just something wrong with it. And this keeps happening. And they're it's not broken. It's not the right movie. And so what is happening is they get to a certain point in the film, and it is playing these weird, eerie, disturbing home videos. So I feel that is going to be the tip of the iceberg. The way John Darnielle writes is just I don't know, it's bizarre. And I love that. I love not knowing what to expect. But then it's also but do I want to go down that road? Will I be the same person when I'm done? So yeah, if you like dark, twisty, but sort of, I don't know, it's unique and new, what he writes. Definitely highly recommend his books. So hopefully I will be able to come out to the light of day after this one, and I won't just be rocking in a corner. Have you read it, Virginia?
Yes, and I think Corinne has also read it. I remember talking about it.
Okay.
I've read Wolf and White Van.
Oh, you read this one, no?
I don't think I haven't read Universal Harvester yet, because I think I'm still recovering from Wolf and White Van.
Give it a couple of years.
It was a lot, but the writing, yeah, exactly. The writing, I'll put it on my list. The writing was amazing, so good, but disturbing.
Mm-hmm. Very disturbing.
So I think we've all gone around twice. So I think it's time for a question of existential dread. Oh, I have got a good one for you. So, what is a book that many other people love that you have not liked so much? It just didn't really work for you. It didn't live up to everyone else's hype for your personal tastes.
I think recently the one that kind of did this for me the most, that I read the reviews, I saw on the Goodreads, people that really enjoy the genre were like, this is a great book. And then I read it, and I don't throw books often, but I do kind of slam them down. And this one was a slammer. I was so angry that I ranted about it to essentially anyone that was in my vicinity. And that book is 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. On the surface, this is a book about someone who loves mystery novels and a serial killer who kills people in the way described in mystery books. This has me written all over it. And I hated it. I hated it, and I would say that to Peter Swanson's face.
I'm curious, can you say why you hated it? Was there reasons... Or was it just a general sense of just not enjoying it?
Without giving away too much of the plot, it isn't quite what it seems. And also the author and narrator think that they are a lot more clever than they are.
Sadie, do you have one?
I do. So kind of similar to Corinne, I had this one on my to-be-read list. It's kind of the genre that I really, really enjoy. And I actually took it out right when we closed back in March, and I was really excited to read it. And it is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It took me a very long time to read. I did not like any of the characters in the book. I did not feel sympathy for any of the characters in the book, which I think you're supposed to at some point. It's about fairies. The Fae takes place in the land of the Fae, which is generally my kind of story. It's fantasy, it's YA, but I got through it. I did get through it, but I will not be reading the other books in the series. Maybe one day, but right now I am just ready to put them aside. But yeah, it's got many 5-star reviews on Goodreads, and I just did not like it. I couldn't do it.
That's so frustrating when that happens, and then I always go search for those other people that are just there's gotta be someone in here that feels the same way.
Feel the same, exactly. You can usually find them on Goodreads. There is usually a pretty wide range of
How would you, Liz?
I think the most recent book that I really just did not want to finish and just ended up flipping through to make sure I didn't miss anything was 3 Women by Lisa Tadeo. I'm not really sure what it was that I didn't really enjoy about it, whether it was the writing style or maybe I didn't really empathize. It's not that I didn't empathize with the women who were talked about in the book. I felt like I couldn't relate to them. And maybe it's the cross-section of women that she wrote about, the 3 women, maybe because they were very culturally, ethnically, their social backgrounds were similar to some degree. I didn't feel like there was a great variety in that. And just sort of not being able to kind of connect with any of them in a really meaningful way. So I'm sure from what I've read, other women have connected with the book, other people who identify as being in the same situations. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have connected with the book. It just wasn't for me. So it was one I had to put down.
That's frustrating when the point is sort of like, well, let's look at some different perspectives, like to consciously choose 3 narratives and then have like none of them connectable. Yeah. Virginia?
So when you ask this question, there's only one book that came to mind. And I have to go back to Goodreads and just kind of like, because I've completely wiped this book out of my memory because I don't want anything to do with it. It is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Like I said, I wiped this book out of my memory. So I'm going to tell you, I think one of the good reviews that really resonate with me, they said, this is a book, it's like a beautiful wedding cake. Imagine the fanciest, prettiest, elegantly decorated wedding cake that there is. And then you just try to peel it back and you're like, where is the cake? And it's just fondant after fondant, which is gross. Fondant is disgusting. It might look pretty, but it's disgusting, right? And you just keep peeling it back and it's just made of fondant and they forgot the cake. And this reviewer described the book and I was like, that is exactly how I feel. It is all just pretty words and like setting after setting, and there is just no story to hang on to. And everybody loves that book. Don't understand.
I haven't read it yet, but it's been on my list for a while.
Samesies.
I probably will, because I know we don't always agree on all of our tastes, but I'm very curious.
When it's the book that is just all about like fancy words and pretty words and stuff like that, and there's no substance to it, that doesn't work for me. I need I need the cake.
Yeah, that generally is me too. So we'll see. And yes, fondant is the most disgusting. It's horrible. It's terrible.
Fiona, how about you?
So my book is a Margaret Atwood book. And I have to say, I don't have a problem with Margaret Atwood in general. I like Alias Grace, especially, like excellent. Other ones are like fine, it's good. But Oryx and Crake of the Mad Adam trilogy, I had a similar reaction to Corinne's, where like I was at a time where I was commuting on a ferry, and every day I would read it on the ferry, and every day I would have fantasies about throwing it into the ocean. And it was a library book of where I was working and commuting to. But it just like, I just wanted to do it so badly, just to like finish that, just to be like, it's gone, it's out of my life. I don't even have to look at it at work anymore. I felt like she really wanted to like shock people with it, and like I find that a lot with like post-apocalyptic books sometimes. Like if it's not meaty, if it's more like, wouldn't this be horrible? It really bothers me. And there's an aspect of it, like a child pornography aspect of it, and I just felt like that was like we didn't need that. Like it was really just there to like be like, I'm so edgy. But it also didn't help that when I was a kid, my mom had a copy of Oryx and Crake, and it had cute little animal, or not like cute, but it had animals on the front, like an armadillo maybe. And so I imagined this whole thing in my head where Oryx and Crake were animals, like prehistoric animals. One was an armadillo, and then I picked it up and that was not what it was. So, you know, maybe that didn't help.
Margaret Atwood fan fiction in the works, maybe?
Well, now that we've all aired our grievances, I'm sure we can expect lots of hate mail. So let's get ready for that.
I stand by it.
Yeah.
I think we have at least one more pick each for our readathon. So Virginia, do you have another one?
I do. Another many, but I will stick with one. So every readathon needs a science fiction comedy, and I got mine here. It is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. This is billed as Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Eurovision. Basically, what happens is that like there's a war going on, and there was like all the species in the universe were involved, and now the war is over. And every year, instead of fighting, all the civilizations, they gather together for the meta-galactic Grand Prix to compete in song and dance with whatever you have or not have, whether it's arms or feet or mouth or faces or whatever. And according to them, singing is the best way to prove that your species is sentient. So if you are competing in this Grand Prix every year and if you rank at the bottom and you lost the competition, you don't have to win it, but you just don't have to rank in the bottom. If you rank at the bottom, that proves that your species is not worthy to live, and they will just annihilate your species. So high stakes here in this Eurovision kind of competition. And this year we have a new competitor. Humans, because the species around in the universe has discovered that on Earth there is this species here called humans, which they have not made contact with. So they made first contact with us, and they have explained about this singing and dancing competition, and they told us that here is a list of performers that we would like you to consider entering into this competition. And humans look at the list and they're like, but they are all dead now because, of course, intergalactic communication a little behind. So they're looking at this, and the only ones that are still alive is a wash-up glam rock band named Decibel Jones and Absolute Zeros. So the fate of humankind is going to rest in the hands of this wash-up glam rock band. And that is all I know about this book. I am looking forward to it. I think funny sci-fi, most of the time I feel like you have to be in the mood for. And I think this readathon will be one that I need one of these just funny, snarky, hilarious science fiction. So Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente.
That sounds so great. And after taking your recommendation to read Quality Land, which was kind of like a satirical sci-fi, I think that I might put that one on my list as well. All right, Sadie, what pick do you have?
All right. So I do have a final fantasy book that I am going to be reading this weekend, and that is Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. And this is actually the second book of a series. I read Shadow of the Fox, which is the first book, back in April, maybe. And I talked about it on one of our book chats a bit earlier in our Spaceopoly summer. And I am very, very excited to read this second one. So without giving too much away for the first book, if you have not read the first one yet, I will tell you a little bit about this one. So 1,000 years ago, a wish was made to the harbinger of change, and the sword of rage and lightning was forged. This sword's name is Kami Goroshi, and it translates to the God Slayer. It had one task, was to seal away a powerful demon named Hakemono. And this demon lives inside of this sword, and somebody has control over the sword, but they have to be very, very careful because at any time the demon could take over. So anytime they use the sword, there's a potential that the demon will leave this sword and take over their bodies. Now, there's also the character of Yumeko, and Yumeko is a shapeshifter. She's a kitsune, which means that she is part fox, and she is seen as a trickster. And at the beginning of our first book in the series, the temple that she has been raised at is attacked by demons, and everybody that she knows in her life has been killed. Before her mentor is killed, he tasks her to bring a piece of this scroll. He gives her a piece of a scroll and says that she has to bring it to another temple. And the very fate of the world depends on this. So Yumeko leaves her temple and goes off in search of this other temple to bring this scroll to. On the way, she meets up with Kage Tatsumi, who is of the Shadow Clan, and he is the current person who is in charge of the sword Kamigoroshi. So it's the story of the two of them. Neither of them is being completely honest with one another. They are both technically working towards the same goal, but neither of them really knows what the end goal for either person is. And it's their journey to deliver this scroll to this other temple. So I'm very excited to see how the story continues in this one. The first book definitely left it on a cliffhanger. So it was a big shock how the first one ended. So I'm very excited to see how the story picks up. And I believe there's a third book in the series, so I imagine that it will probably be a similar ending where I will need to rush out and get the third one as well. So we'll see. Maybe there will be an impromptu trip to the library to pick up book number 3 this weekend as well. So that is Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. And again, the first book is Shadow of the Fox. So if that sounds like something up your alley, I would give the first one a try as well.
All right, Kareen, what is your next pick?
All right, for my very last pick, I'm returning like back to basics, back to like the fundamentals of who Kareen is as a reader. And so I am choosing a like classic mystery with a little bit of a twist. So the book that I am choosing is actually a book that I have purchased and never read. So inspired by our talks, I'm actually trying to tackle that whole thing. So the book that I am going to read is The Honjin Murders by Seishi Yokomizo. And Yokomizo is actually considered, to make like an analogy, like the Agatha Christie of Japan. So he started writing in the 20s. This was the first book featuring a very famous detective that has a subsequent series afterwards that won the 1948 Mystery Writers of Japan Award. And so this is kind of like the first book in that series. And I love kind of like golden age mystery novels. And this one sounds amazing. It takes place in 1937 in the village of Okamura. And everyone is very excited for this big wedding that is about to happen. So they're all getting prepared. The family is gathering. There's this kind of electric buzz in the air. Except that there's kind of like this dark rumor circulating through the village that some people have spotted a strange masked man who's been asking questions kind of along the edges of the village. And of course, on the night of the wedding, there is a horrible scream that goes out from the household that is followed by the sound of eerie music. So love a murder that comes with its own soundtrack. There's no trace of the murderer except for a bloody samurai sword thrust into the pristine snow outside of the house. Dun, dun, dun! And we get an amateur detective in their very, very first appearance who's a little bit scruffy, a little bit of an outsider who's going to solve this impossible crime for us. So I feel like this is going to be 100% up my alley. This is the first time that this book has been translated into English. So Pushkin Vertigo is doing a really good job of bringing like classic mystery novels from different countries into English. So it's a work in translation and I am super looking forward to it. Just like, look at that cover. Look at that cover. Drink it in. Drink it in.
Sounds good.
That does sound pretty excellent.
I'm ready. I'm so ready. And I think I might have purchased the second one, but I can't tell in the stack of books that I bought. So.
All right, Liz, you're up.
Okay, well, after Gothic horror and a little bit of cannibalism Americana, I thought I'd switch things up and have some light and fun and maybe slightly frivolous YA fiction. So this one is called Shine, and it is the first novel by Jessica Jung. So if any of you out there are K-pop fans, then the name might be familiar to you. Jessica Jung was part of one of the first really huge K-pop girls groups that we've heard about on this side of the ocean, called Girls' Generation. And she's since spun off her career to do fashion and all kinds of fun, glamorous things in Korea. So she's taken her background to write this story about a Korean American girl named Rachel. Now, Rachel is 17 years old. But 6 years ago, she was recruited by a K-pop conglomerate to enter into their finishing school, so to speak. So in this school, they get a bunch of teenagers and train them to be singers, to be dancers, how to act in the public eye, all the stuff that would make you potentially a star. So now that she's 17 and I guess sort of coming of age within this untraditional school system, she really feels the pressure to conform to an industry that is very much based on public perception of celebrities who are expected to be perfect in their looks and perfect in their actions. And of course, as a potential K-pop idol, she must look presentable at all times, act with comportment, be perfect in her singing and dancing, and certainly no dating. Now, she feels like nobody really understands what she's going through, all this pressure to potentially make it in the system after all this time and all this commitment and hard work, until she meets Jason. He's already an established K-pop star. And, well, not only does he lend an ear to her and is able to relate to her struggles in the K-pop world, but also there may be some romantic feelings involved, of course. So looking forward to this one, something a little bit lighter, something a little bit different, and hopefully a great first novel. That's Shine by Jessica Jung.
Wow, that's so neat to have like an actual insider perspective to write that book.
I hope it's full of gossip.
All right, I had my third pick. I am going to try to read The War That Saved My Life. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, and like everybody being like, just sit down and read it right now, just read it right now, and yet I still haven't. So I am going to fix that this weekend. So it's set in wartime London, and it is about a little girl, Ada, and she, I believe she has a clubbed foot, and for that reason, her mother likes to keep her inside where no one can see her. The kids sort of like know about her and like talk about her, but she doesn't get to come out and socialize. When her brother Jamie is sent away on a train to keep him safe, she follows. And I get the feeling it's sort of about this like newfound, freedom and personhood that has been sort of restricted throughout her whole life. It's supposed to be sad and touching and beautiful. Part of it is about her sort of like, there's a woman who takes care of them when they leave their home, which is appealing to me, to sort of have this adoptive parent relationship. And I think it's very much about the personal growth of Ada. So I like a good historical fiction, and as I say, like just people who I really respect their reading taste have said I have to read this. So really, really looking forward to that one, and I think it is has a sequel. So hopefully I'll like it, and then maybe I can move on to the next one.
I love that book so much. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. You're going to cry, though, so just as a heads up.
Good, that's good. I like to have a good book cry. Especially, I feel like doing this readathon is the perfect time for a book cry. That nest that I've been building.
So that's part of your prep, is to make sure that you have adequate Kleenex around, some water nearby so you can rehydrate.
Exactly.
Nasal spray, like all that stuff.
So that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us as we talk about our upcoming readathon. I hope you grab your tracker and join us. See if you can do 12 hours between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And don't forget to join the Facebook group, where we will be giving away daily prizes and doing all sorts of fun, interactive activities. Anybody have anything to add?
Read on, everyone. I hear it's supposed to be smoky this weekend, so it's the perfect excuse to stay inside and read.
Silver lining. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy your week. Happy reading.
Bye. Happy reading.
Happy reading. Thank you for listening. If you like our show, please tell a fellow book lover about it. You can find a list of all the books we discussed in our show notes. Join us next week for another fun book chat. Until then, keep it fictional.